Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for letting me come and join you. It's good to be visiting a Rotary Club again. Mayor, thank you very much for your introduction. She is the second of 3 mayors that I will have during my first year as city manager. Would you join me in expressing some appreciation for her willingness to step up to the plate and lead the city so extraordinarily well during this election. We are indeed blessed with her leadership, and it's been a tremendous pleasure for me to work with her. And I have another one of my bosses, Councilwoman Claire Fallon here. Councilwoman Fallon, thank you for being here today as well. And we have some prospective council members in the audience as well. Thank you for being here. People have asked me if I knew what I was getting into. But of course, it would only be appropriate that my appointment date was April 1st, April Fool's Day. And in fact, today we're sitting here on my 6-month anniversary. And I have to say, it has been an exciting 6 months. I have not been bored a single day. But you know, the truth of the matter is, if there's anybody in Charlotte who's bored, they're working really hard at it, because there are more things going on in this city for more people more often than I think you can find literally anywhere else. And it's an exciting and dynamic city, and what brought me here was this tremendous foundation of a great community that had been laid by many of you in this room who have served on the council, on the commission, on the county and city staff, in business, in philanthropy, and in the service clubs. You have built a great city, but what really brought me here is what I found time after time again, that as much as people are proud of what they've done in Charlotte, as much as people love living in Charlotte, they're not satisfied. They're not complacent. People believe that Charlotte can be an even greater and better city in the future. And what I hope I can do as city manager is serve effectively in my administrative role, trying to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of city government, but even more importantly is in carrying out the policies of the city council, and the mayor is helping be a facilitator and connecting the dots. Because ultimately, the responsibility in city government is not just to provide services, it's to help build a great community. And city government cannot do that by itself. You only have great cities, you only have great global cities if all the sectors come together and work together to make it happen. And the interconnectedness that I see in the city of Charlotte is in fact the strongest asset that this city has to take itself to the next level. People have asked me, well, what is your vision and what are your priorities? And quite frankly, it's never about the city manager's vision. It really is about the community vision. And that community vision ends up being translated through your elected officials into concrete policies that we advance. And this is why it is so important that everybody engage civically in local government. There are 3 areas that I have been talking about as I've gone around that I do see as especially important as we try to anchor ourselves toward a shared vision of what the next version of Charlotte might be. Those 3 areas are economics, ethics, and engagement. I start with economics because I learned very early on that part of Charlotte's history and strength is that it is a business community. That we've had a business community that has been thriving, that is engaged, that are good corporate citizens, and have worked to really make the city a great city, not just for business, but for everybody. So areas in the economic area that are particularly important for us to think about is, first of all, employment. Unemployment is still too high in this city and in this county, and I do come from a background that really does believe in jobs first. Jobs are the foundation of independence and self-sufficiency and dignity, and we always have to be about in everything that we do, ensuring that we have people prepared for work and that we have the jobs for them. This is why investment in the schools and investment in the community college is so important. And you see how I did that without campaigning for anything that I can't campaign for? Taxes are important, and keeping taxes low is important. And Charlotte is in a strong position there. The city taxes just at 47 cents were lower than Winston-Salem, lower than Durham, lower than Greensboro. Only Raleigh has a lower tax rate than the city. And it's important to keep taxes low in order for us to be competitive. Our economy is recovering. Our tax receipts are going up. Our housing values are going up. We are in a strong position, but we cannot be complacent. And that was what was so important in the mayor and council passing their capital investment program. And the key word in there is investment. The purpose of that program is to invest in the infrastructure of this city, throughout the city in multiple areas, in order to provide for the incentive for private capital investment. There is an expectation of a return on that investment, and in fact that $816 million all goes out the door into contracts and services. It is all pushed out into the community to, in itself, create jobs and create an infrastructure where the private sector can then come behind and invest as well. But just as with the schools and with the community college, a critical component of that $816 million capital program will be the support of the community through bond referenda beginning next fall. And in addition to that investment, which is in transportation and community development and a host of things, we are, as the mayor mentioned, continuing our investment in transit. One of the most exciting things I've been able to be a part of this past 6 months is the groundbreaking for the Blue Line extension. You have seen in the South End what investment in transit can do. And we will begin to see that in the North End, and we will begin to see that east and west as we advance the Gold Line. Again, you don't build transit for the purpose of building transit. You build transit as an investment to stimulate capital investment, creating jobs and growing wealth for the community. And so as we look at private investment, there are several areas that are important for us to focus on. One is on regulation itself. And one of the things which I am working on within the city staff, and I'll be working on with Kelly and others, is how do we ensure that the cost of development from the initial zoning through the certificate of occupancy on a building is as efficient as it possibly can be in the city of Charlotte. How can we make the city of Charlotte the most cost-efficient place to do investment and to help grow this community? By streamlining, consolidating, and facilitating people creating jobs. We also want to be very intentional about creating a diverse economy. A diverse economy has many different components, one of which is just location. One of the most exciting things about Charlotte, and a great asset of this city, is that we are huge. We have 300 square miles. And people sometimes have asked me about the competition between Uptown and Valentine. No, that's not competition. You know, being able to offer a product like Uptown and a product like Valentine and a product like the university area, I mean, and what we're doing in intermodal out in the west by the airport, what we want to have happen is when a business is thinking about relocating, or thinking about expanding, we want them to be, scratching their heads and say, where do I go in Charlotte? Not where do I go, Charlotte versus Atlanta or Richmond or somewhere else. But we are big enough and diverse enough to offer a variety of products so that whatever kind of business you want to do, you can find a place to do that business right here in Charlotte. And we want to be very intentional about how we seek to recruit businesses, building on our strengths around finance, but also healthcare, education, energy, and transportation. Trying to create synergy across these different industries that provide for the long-term, not just sustainability of Charlotte, but the long-term vibrancy of Charlotte. And part of that is an area that I have found to be particularly controversial and misunderstood in Charlotte, and that is the issue of business incentives. Carowinds is the one that most recently has received some play in the press, and around which people have stopped me in asking, why do we need to give them money? They don't really need my tax money. And this is where I think there's a misunderstanding, and perhaps we have not done as well as we can in explaining what the business incentives are. What we're trying to do with business incentives is compete with a competition that does incentives aggressively outside of Charlotte, in other states and in other cities. And we're doing so not by spending the residents' tax money, but by merely giving part of the new tax money of the new business back to them. And so all the incentives that the city does around new business incentives is based upon people making a verified investment in the city that literally increases their taxes. And they don't get anything back until they actually have a higher tax bill. And part of that tax bill comes back to them for a relatively short period of time. It is literally an investment in the future that typically has a payback of 3 years or less. It's not taking residential tax money. It is, in fact, generating business tax money to help keep our overall tax rates and residential tax rates low. Ethics is a second area that is compelling, particularly because of the profession that I'm in. Professional management, city management, literally did not exist as a profession or as a form of government until shortly after the turn of the last century. Up until that point, as the United States was becoming more urbanized and more people were living more densely close together, the local government form was patterned just like the federal and the state form. Strong executive elected to do battle with the legislative body all the time, set up originally because, we were born as a country in a revolution. We fundamentally didn't trust government. And so we created a system of checks and balances to ensure that government would not work. How are we doing with that at the federal level today? Brilliant! It's happening just the way it was supposed to. But when you get down to the local government level, the government is really about providing basic services that people depend on day in and day out, from the time you get up in the morning and turn on the water and flush the toilet. People want and demand that those services work. And what we were finding was that following that political model at the federal and state level, we had cities that were growing in size and that were dysfunctional. They weren't working. Basic services weren't being provided. We didn't even have antibiotics at the time. We had bad water, we had sewage in the streets, and we literally had people dying in cities. And so in a municipal reform movement at the turn of the last century, people said, let's not look at the political model, let's look at the business model. Let's think of our elected legislative body as the board of directors of this municipal corporation. And here's an idea. Why don't they hire a CEO that knows how to run the company? And here's an idea. If the CEO doesn't do a good job, let's don't wait 4 years or 2 years for an election. Let's just fire the person and get somebody in here who can run the company. And thus the council manager form of government was created, with the first city adopting it in 1907, 1908, and in 1914, professional association created to support this new profession that I'm in. It is about effectiveness, it's about efficiency, but fundamentally, it's about ethics. It's about running government that's not based on patronage and who your friends are and who your campaign donors are. It's about running government professionally. And so I just got back last week from the 99th anniversary of my professional association, ICMA, where I was Chief Operating Officer before I came here. And next year, ICMA will be celebrating its 100th anniversary as an association here in the city of Charlotte. And so I'm looking forward to bringing all of my colleagues here, where this city and this county and our towns have a long history of professional management. But it's not just about not lying, cheating, and stealing. Ethics is also about building a community that is fair for all people. When we stand up here and we pledge allegiance of liberty and justice for whom? All. Is there an asterisk there? Is there a footnote there? Has there been at times? Yeah, there really has. But you see, freedom and justice, fairness, doesn't happen at the federal or state level. It happens in communities where people live. And if this country's going to be fair and it's going to be just, if we're all going to enjoy liberty, we have to make it happen here. And so there are a host of programs that we try to facilitate within the city. This is why this very public review of the Police Citizens Review Board underway is important, to make sure that there are processes that truly work for people. I was thrilled to see the mayor up there. By the way, she's having a great time as mayor. I don't know if she's going to be able to go back to District 1 or not. She's been having a blast. And it was so great seeing her up there in one of the lead cars for the Charlotte Pride Parade. And the level of corporate support for inclusion of that community. The Charlotte Inclusion Program to bring in small and minority and women-owned business into the economics of the city. The Mayor's Youth Employment Program. These are all efforts to ensure not just passively that we believe in justice and equality, but that we're proactive in making it happen. The third area that is really critical, and perhaps the most critical of all, this is where I start, and that is engagement. It's not just about city government, it's about the city as a whole, and all the institutions and all the people who live here. It's about the city and the county and the state connecting. It's about the business and the business associations connected. It's about the nonprofit community and two great organizations in the city that I hope all of you do not take for granted and actively participate is our United Way and our Arts and Science Council, providing umbrella opportunities to reach so many different organizations that do so much good in our community. And of course, it is the faith community, and it is the service organizations like yours. People who come together because you actually do care about fellowship, and that's not unimportant. A great community is a community where people connect with one another. And they know one another, and they support one another, but they go beyond themselves to help support that community as a whole. And that is the service piece that you do. So thank you for what you do to build this great community. Thank you for letting me come into your community. In fact, I'm sort of interested in this crowd. How many native Charlotteans do we have here? Would you stand up, the native Charlotteans? Will the rest of you give them a hand? And thank you for being such a welcoming community to immigrants like me and the rest of us. We are thrilled to be here in this community where you were born and that you created. If we have time, I'd be happy to take a few questions from the audience.